And there is a lot happening in the high seas. An American warship has reportedly been attacked. An Iranian vessel has been rescued by the US Navy. Let's just go through all of these developments one by one. The Houthis claim they have attacked USS Lewis B Puller in the Gulf of Aden. They say they have launched a rocket. The Houthi spokesperson, Yahya Sari, said the attacks will continue until the aggression is stopped and the siege is lifted on the people of Palestine in the Gaza Strip. The Houthis have given no evidence of the attack, and the United States has outrightly rejected the claim. Let's just tell you a little bit about the USS Lewis B Puller. It is America's mobile US-based siege. The ship serves as a floating landing base. It has been stationed in the Red Sea and tasked with ensuring the safety of commercial ships passing through the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden. Remember, we told you the story of the US Navy SEALs raiding an UN-flagged ship on the 11th of January. The SEALs had used the Puller as their mobile base. This vessel is 784 feet long. It has a 52,000 square foot flight deck, fuel and equipment storage, repair spaces, magazines. The vessel can basically accommodate up to 250 personnel. It can support air mine countermeasures, support counter-piracy operations, maritime security operations, also humanitarian and disaster relief missions. The USS Lewis B Puller was the first U.S. ship, in fact, to be commissioned outside the U.S., and it appears to have become the latest ship to have come under attack in the high seas. It is the 29th of January, the day on which French farmers vowed to besiege Paris. The siege is already in motion. Let's just have a look at the latest visuals. The farmers are closing in on the French capital. Dozens of tractors have occupied a motorway near the city of Beauvais, which leads to Paris. And this is just one of the locations, in fact. The farmers plan to establish 8 choke points all along the major arteries to Paris. The farmers want to close all the ways to the capital city. For how long? Well, they say indefinitely. They have been protesting all through the week. But why are the farmers doing this? They are demanding better prices for their produce and safeguards against cheap and imported competition.
My son, he is no longer motivated like I was at his age. Given all the constraints we have, the paperwork, the checks, they don't have the passion I had at his age. We were going all in. Him, it no longer is the same vision. They no longer have the same vision as we had at their age. And that's a shame because we lose all this love.
The suffering in the agricultural world has to stop at some point. It frankly disturbs me that people who get up in the morning to feed others, to work, to do their job well, one day end up attempting suicide or put an end to their lives. Behind it, there are family dramas, and I believe that this should no longer exist.
You see, France planned to cut subsidies on agricultural diesel, but seeing the widespread furor, it decided to drop the plan. The French Prime Minister, Gabriel Attal, tried to calm down the protesters, and speaking at a farm with his speaking notes on a bale of hay, Attal vowed that the government will put agriculture above everything else. But you see, that was not enough to assuage the farmers. They still decided to continue with the planned siege of Paris. And it's not just the capital, by the way. Protests have been raging all over the country. The farmers are fuming. On Friday, they set a truck carrying peppers on fire. They also overturned it with a tractor. You have to watch this for yourself. Others lit a huge bonfire in the southern city of Montpellier. And in the northern French town of Houthis, demonstrators held a silent gathering to pay tributes to a farmer and her daughter. The two died in the course of the protests as a car ran into a roadblock in the Ariège region. So you see, the protests are not only creating inconvenience, they are also claiming lives. In Montauban, angry French farmers set tires and waste on fire. Now, there are many sides to the issue. The French government is trying to rein in food inflation, but this has left the farmers unable to cover high costs for energy, fertilizers, transportation. The French farmers are arguing that they are not being paid enough and are choked by excessive environmental regulations. And then there are also concerns around imports. The EU has waived quotas and duties on Ukrainian imports since the war started. They don't have to meet the environmental standards as well, which other EU farmers need to. French farmers are resenting the Ukrainian imports for affecting the European prices. And this resentment is on wide display across the country. What is the French government doing about this? So far, it has maintained a tolerant stance and has promised some measures to address the issues within days. But it seems like the people in France have gone rogue. Apart from violent protests, there has also been violent climate activism. Two activists hurled soup on the world-famous Mona Lisa in the Paris's Louvre Museum. The painting was not harmed thanks to its protective glass, but it was certainly smeared in red soup. The activists shouted, and I quote, "What is more important, art or the right to have a healthy and sustainable food system?" Now, that is one extreme way of raising a point. The visitors at the museum were left angry and confused. Listen in to what they had to say.
It's disgusting to treat art that's really valuable for the history of humankind that way.
Yes, I understand the demands 1,000 times, but on the other hand, when it comes to the link with art, I don't see why they target works of art.
Now, this was not the first time something like this has happened, and unfortunately, it will not be the last time either. This time, it was soup. In the year 2022, the Mona Lisa was smothered in cream. Vincent van Gogh's sunflowers at the London National Gallery also became a victim that same year. But where do we draw the line? How far will people go in the name of activism? From a foreign leader going crazy for China, we turn to a Chinese company's crazy downfall. I am talking about Evergrande, the debt-laden Chinese property giant. 5 months after filing for bankruptcy, it has now been ordered to liquidate. You heard that right. Evergrande has been asked to abolish its operations by a Hong Kong court. The decision has been taken after an 18-month-long hearing. Now, this is a tragic fall from grace for Evergrande. You see, the company was once the second largest property developer in China in terms of sales. In fact, in the year 2018, it became the most valuable real estate company in the world. Cut to the year 2021, and Evergrande became the poster child of China's real estate crisis. It earned the title of the world's most indebted property developer with about $300 billion in liabilities. And now it has failed to convince a Hong Kong court that it has a viable restructuring plan. This is after the company was given 7 extensions since the court proceedings were first brought against it in June 2022. However, reports saying Evergrande can still appeal, but the question is, what led to the company's downfall? How did it become so indebted? How did things reach this point? And what happens next? Let's find out. Now, to start with, what exactly is liquidation? Well, it is a process where a company's assets are seized and sold off. The proceeds can then be used to repay the outstanding debts. That said, whether this process is actually executed depends on the Chinese government. Also, the liquidation order does not necessarily mean that Evergrande will go bust and collapse. And this brings us to a bigger question. Why is Evergrande in trouble in the first place, and why has it been asked to liquidate? Well, it's primarily because the company borrowed more than $300 billion during its growing years. And the trouble started when China drafted new rules to control the amount owed by big real estate developers to keep its business afloat. After these rules, Evergrande offered its properties at major discounts to keep the money flowing in. But it struggled to meet the interest payments on its debts and lost 99% of its value in the last 3 years. Unable to repay the interest on its loans, the company formally defaulted in December 2021. It was given time to come up with a plan to repay its debts that suited its creditors, but this did not happen. And analysts are now skeptical if any of the debt will actually be repaid in full, ever. So what happens to Evergrande now is the immediate question. Well, the court has ruled that Evergrande's boss, Houthi, who is under criminal investigation, would no longer control the company. It added that Evergrande's broader management would be revamped in a bid to ease the fears of the creditors. And besides this, the court will also appoint a body tasked with liquidating Evergrande's assets in Hong Kong. The company, however, insists that its operations in the mainland will be unaffected by the decision. Next question, will this decision affect China's economy? Not really. Analysts say Evergrande's legal troubles are unlikely to spark a lot of concern on the mainland. They say that the impact would have been evident when the company went bankrupt, and the disintegration of its dead husk is unlikely to do much either. But Evergrande's woes have become emblematic of a years-long crisis in China's property market, a crisis that is reverberating throughout the world's second-largest economy. In fact, it has left many home buyers waiting for their new properties. Many of them have even taken to social media sites, such as Weibo, to share their frustration about the property developers. They fear that Evergrande's fall may trigger a domino effect, where more property giants fall one by one.